In 1990, Judith Butler's book Gender Trouble was published. In the book, Butler wrote of how discourse shapes people's perception of what is and isn't normal. She quotes French philosopher Monique Wittig. The naming of sex is an act of domination and compulsion. The category of sex is a name that enslaves. The straight mind, evident in the discourses of the human sciences, oppress all of us, lesbians, women and homosexual men. Butler believes that it is liberating to change discourse, to downplay the significance of biological sex and elevate the significance of a personal gender. In 2005, Cardiff University academic Professor Emma Reynolds had a paper published titled "They Won't Let Us Play Unless You're Going Out with One of Them: Girls, Boys and Butler's Heterosexual Matrix in the Primary Years." In the article, Reynolds writes, "The heteronormativity of gender relations in the early years is certainly ripe for some gender trouble, and some of this work is well underway and radically disrupting a range of gender and sexual truths in what might be more fittingly described as the heteroformative years." Reynolds also produced resources to be used in schools that encourage children to look beyond the binary. A gender is recommended by the Future Generations Commissioner for Wales and the NSPCC. In her paper, Rebel Becomings, Professor Leanne Cole, who worked with Professor Reynolds, writes, "It is impossible to ignore the increasing role that queer and feminist activism is playing in schools. Programs and resources such as Agenda Wales are some international examples of how explicit post-structural queer and feminist new materialist frameworks are being used in schools to queer school spaces and educational experiences." The work is certainly producing results. As teacher at Ysgol Callan Cymru, Steffan Evans states,
"It's really important because actually we're seeing a lot more coming through now to us. I'm secondary high school teacher, so I teach from the age of 11 up to 18, and we actually see a lot more young people coming through now from the primary school age who are now identifying as different pronouns to what they were at birth, and it's a way of supporting them and making sure that we've got that sort of, support network in place right at the start, and that we can give that support then as staff as well. But yep, staff need the support as well, and everyone involved really needs that education to move it forward.
Schools in Wales that use the computer system SIMS can now record the gender identity and pronouns of students and specify whether this information should be hidden from parents. There is no good evidence to support the proposition that gender identity is innate, but gender identity is required by queer theory to dissolve the binary opposition between male and female. As Butler writes, "Politically, securing greater freedoms for women requires that we rethink the category of women to include those new possibilities. The historical meaning of gender can change as its norms are reenacted, refused or recreated." And as academic Sally Hines writes, "The theory that everyone has a gender identity is called feminism." The promulgation of queer theory into schools is most advanced in the United States. In 2007, the Arcus Foundation awarded a grant of $1,200,000 to GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educational Network, to make schools safer for GLBT students. GLSEN provide educational materials for schools.
Let's get started by taking a look at gender, the socially constructed system of characteristics and expectations associated with masculinity and femininity. Typically, gender is thought of as a distinct binary, with feminine or women on one side and masculine or men on the other. It all starts with those first questions we ask when we find out a friend or family member is going to have a baby. Is it a boy or a girl? A baby's born and immediately assigned a gender of female or male based on an interpretation of their body, mostly the visible markers of their reproductive anatomy. And from there, people even already know what gifts to buy them. Pink things for baby girls and blue things for baby boys. We know the set of expectations that correspond to each of those genders too. Girls and later women are expected to be caretakers, have long hair, and wear skirts, to be our mothers and teachers and nurses. Boys and later men are expected to take charge, to have short hair and wear pants, to be our soldiers, our firefighters, our business leaders. It seems so simple. 2 boxes, pick one. But it's not. The binary just isn't accurate. First of all, people are complex. No one can fit into those narrow expectations all the time. Sometimes girls want to wear blue and play with trucks, and sometimes boys want to wear pink and play with dolls. What it means to be female or male is felt and interpreted differently by all of us. And some of us are assigned a gender at birth that ends up just not fitting with how we really feel about ourselves later on. Regardless of that assignment as babies, some of us identify as male, some as female, some as both, some as neither, some as transgender, some as genderqueer, or any of the myriad identities that feel right at a particular time.
In 2012, Kevin Jennings, the founder of GLSEN, joined the Arcus Foundation. The head of the Arcus Foundation is Jon Stryker. Stryker is heir to a multi-billion-dollar medical corporation. The Stryker Corporation profit from gender reassignment surgery. In 2015, fellow billionaire Tim Gill presented Stryker with the Visionary Award at the GLSEN Respect Awards. Gill alluded to the enormous power that is available to those who hold vast sums of money.
Over the 17 years I've known Jon, we've plotted together, we've schemed, we've hiked and got incredibly wet. We have skied. Actually, he has skied and I have snowboarded, but he does not discriminate. And we've rewarded the good and punished the wicked.
Stryker uses much of his vast fortune to promote queer theory.
But recently I'm about to establish a chair at a college, and it's going to be in queer studies.
And this teaching is certainly having an impact on the psychology of young people.
In some ways we are moving to a point where people are starting to consider other genders, but still things seem to be really pink and blue, or really binary, really male and female, and going outside of that is considered abnormal when it shouldn't be, really.
I've also been told that you take gender too literally. You sort of say, back when I was younger, no one cared. It's like, yeah, they did. Of course they did. They just didn't speak out about it because they were scared, because there was discrimination that was much worse than it is now.
It's important to know that there aren't just standard male to female. There's a lot more to explore.
Because gender isn't about opposites. It's more of a sort of scale. That's why sort of non-binary and agender, etc., or people who identify more with female or more with male, but they're not necessarily agender. It's sort of more of a spectrum, I think, and it can change. If you tell someone, "Oh, I'm non-binary," they go, "What does that mean? Does that mean you don't have any genitals?" It's like, no, it's sort of like a really weird concept people have.
Queer theory promises to make the world a less unequal place, and Jeremy Miles certainly believes in a utopian vision.
I always say that equality is indivisible. You can't believe in equality for some without believing in equality for all. And for every community fighting for its rights or its recognition, the struggle may not be the same struggle. The pain is not the same pain, but the destination is the same destination. A world of love and hope where we are all equal in our laws and in our hearts, regardless of who we love, how we identify, or the colour of our skin.
In February 2024, Labour leader Keir Starmer contravened the rules of the House of Commons when he attacked the Prime Minister by attempting to intimidate him by referring to people in the gallery. Starmer referred to the mother of the brutally murdered trans-identified teenager Brianna Ghey.
Mr. Speaker, well, we are bringing the waiting list down for the longest waiters. We're making progress. But it's a bit rich, Mr. Speaker, to hear about promises from someone who's broken every single promise he was elected on. I mean, I think I counted almost 30 in the last year. Pensions, planning, peerages, public sector pay, tuition fees, childcare, second referendums, defining a woman. Although in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn. The list goes on, but the theme is the same, Mr. Speaker. It's empty words, broken promises, and absolutely no plan. Keir Starmer.
Of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in this chamber, shame, parading as a man of integrity when he's got absolutely no responsibility. Absolute. Of all.
In response, Jeremy Miles tweeted, "This is appalling. More than that, it reveals how the dehumanisation of trans people has become almost normalised in our politics. It cannot be accepted. I will not accept it here in Wales." Others believe that children are being groomed. In response to a Freedom of Information request, it was revealed that in 2022, 1,042 people were referred to the Welsh Gender Service, and 172 trans-identified females were referred for double mastectomies. Michael Shellenberger states,
"We're actually giving people gender dysphoria. It's not, I don't think it's a natural thing. We're creating, through ideological means, gender and social media, gender dysphoria, and then we're mistreating it." So this is a straightforward problem in a sense, which is that, we know from Jonathan Haidt that liberals and progressives orient centrally around the core value of compassion. He identifies 6 or 7, they keep changing the number, core values to people, and what they find is that progressives, partly through secularization, that they move away from the emphasis on a balanced set of values towards a really intensive focus on a single value of compassion. That then creates this really powerful blind spot. The blind spot is that compassion could create cruelty.
Young people are beginning to wake up.
No, there are no tomboys anymore. And that's because gender ideology is the most sexist and homophobic-based ideology there is. This is an ideology that teaches little children that their bodies are wrong. That teaches them that they were not born in the right body because maybe they like boy toys and they're a girl, or they like girl toys and they're a boy. There's an entire generation growing up where if you're a girl, your hair is long. They don't know girls with short hair. If someone has short hair, it's a boy. They are teaching our children that at 13 years old, you should have a double mastectomy, which, by the way, this is what they're doing. These are young women who will grow up one day, most likely detransition, and will never be able to experience motherhood to its full capacity and breastfeed their child. We're talking about young boys who are having vaginoplasties at 17 years old, never even had sex in their life, and they are getting their dicks cut off. We are talking about majority of these kids that are trans kids are actually gay. So this is medicalized conversion therapy that is being performed on gay kids. And what's really sad is a good portion of these kids are straight. They would have grown up to be straight, but they get sucked into the ideology. This is a cult thing. This is a cult ideology. And it is a phenomenon that is currently taking over like wildfire around the world. It's narcissistic. There are no lesbians with dicks, okay? A gay man are two dudes born with a penis. Have any of you seen any of the photos of surgeries? Because I have, because I'm on Twitter. If you haven't been there and you would like to be horrified and peek someone else in your life, I highly suggest going to Twitter. Unfortunately, that is where everything can be really seen. The amount of skin grafts that I've seen turned into fake penises on women is mortifying. They are literally filleting an entire section of skin off of the thighs, off of the arms, and using that to construct a penis on women. How horrifying. Have you seen how botched these vaginoplasties are? And these men actually think that they're getting periods. You don't have a uterus. You're not shedding any uterine lining. It's not a period. It's the result of your medication. It's called a side effect. It's not natural. Again, gender ideology is the most sexist and homophobic ideology out there. And if you haven't peaked, now's the time.